So we're in the library bar once again here at the Gilded Balloon, and if you are less than familiar with the Edinburgh Festival, you might have been forgiven for thinking thus far that it's mainly a theatrical or a comedic event, but of course music represented as well, many artistic disciplines, and music represented today by Hugh Cry joining us to talk about their one show this evening at the Assembly Rooms in the Music Hall. Greg and Pat, good afternoon.
I thought you were going to say if you're less than 35, please turn over because you won't understand what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes.
Yes. Well, there's an interesting trail for our conversation.
We've declared the People's Republic of Ouijitopia here, so
it had to happen at some point.
Yes, it's true. There's a force field repelling all aesthetic Edinburghers.
Blythe Duff on our show as well today. Another.
I believe is doing a storm in some fantastic performance.
She has, she's picked up a Fringe first, in fact.
Good for her.
For the show Kira. In a conversation with her.
Any dead bodies in it? No.
No, she's.
Is there a murder in
it? There's not been a murder.
Okay,
as far as I can tell, she's moving away from that at this point. But yeah, you're on tonight at the Assembly Rooms at the Music Hall. Now we checked with the venue just a few minutes ago, and it's almost sold out. There are a couple of tickets left.
Is that not record company banter? No, is that real? No, it was. We've done really well. Unfortunately,
Who are they all?
It's the most distracting hall to play in because it's so beautiful.
Mm.
So when you look out into the audience, everybody's looking at the gold-leafed cornicing, and you know,
we could just take them through a guide to the actual architectural. If there's any lulls or longures, you know.
We played it for Radio 4th a couple of years ago for Grant Stott's thing, 50 Shades of Grant, I think it was called. Everybody asked to come and do it, and it just been finished, the refurb, and it's so beautiful. I mean.
That's too nice now, please.
It's gorgeous, and I'm so glad. I think it holds about 600 people, and I think we're about 550 odd tickets.
I mean, this is quite an intimate show that you put on.
We toured it a lot last year, just the two of us. What we like to do is go out on our own, and we found this great new promoter who's booked us into places that we've never been to before. And a few hundred people were turning up every night, and it just economically it makes sense for Pat and I and our tour manager to jump in a tour bus and go and play these venues. So we've got quite good at it now. We did about 50 shows last year, just the two of us. I play a lot of guitar in this show just to break it up a bit.
I do the spoons. And tap.
No.
Gregory said you have to learn tap.
We're not doing that song tonight.
No, we're not doing it. I have to learn tap. I think it's outrageous actually, but anyway, there we are.
And I mean, I think about some of the early Hugh and Cry records, particularly, which were, I mean, they were enormous productions. I mean, how many musicians were on Labour of Love, for
135.
That's probably about correct, is it?
Labour of Love was James Brown's horn section, Labour of Love. The old string section that played on the Temptations hits was on Labour of Love. We spent far too much money making
Nothing but the best for boys from the 80s from Coatbridge. Swimming on a sea of CD margin cash. Fantastic.
But I guess what this show and shows like it show is that if you take those records and take those songs and strip them back to an intimate two-piece performance, they absolutely still stand up.
I was pure tickled to watch the TV the other night and see Biffy Clyro, who were saying that we subject all of our massive stadium songs to the two guys and a single microphone test, and if it passes the two guys in a single microphone test, and it goes so. I went, him and me have a kind of P-Vox test on our P guitar test, and you can build it on the top of that basically.
But the way we never rehearse these shows, but what we do is
as you'll see tonight,
emails and texts go back and forth about how we're going to play songs, what headspace Pat's in, what headspace I'm in. That determines what kind of set we're going to play. So that's been, as Pat's been getting the train up today, texts have been going back and forth. So we now start to form really the whole set list in our head. And again, it is very dependent on how him and I are feeling today. So every set's different every time we do this.
But the bizarre thing is, we've been doing this for how many? 30 years coming up for?
Yeah.
And because we've been writing, you got all these cab drivers driving in from the station saying, "Where have you been for the last 25 years?" Making music, sunshine. So you've actually got this list of about hundreds and hundreds of songs written at certain periods over your biographical life. So there's all these different emotions that are attached: triumph, failure, grind, breakthrough, So they can be quite slap yourself around the face and don't greet halfway through the song.
It's like flicking through
experiences, to be quite honest.
Flicking through a 30-year-old diary.
Aye, it's quite tough. Quite tough. Songs that you wrote when you were, a brightsome thing, and in an earlier marriage. When you were 25, have a certain poignancy now, and songs that you've written, about politics, say.
Yes.
And the same sort of grief happening again, whether it's to do with cyclical contradictions of capitalism, whatever, up, down, boom, slump. So it's quite weird. It's like, and I think as much for us, as much for the fans as well. You know, if they've stuck with us this long, and that's quite good. 600 coming along. That's
I mean,
quite good.
mentioning Labour of Love again, which of course was your big sort of breakthrough hit in 1987. I think it was 87, was it?
87.
summer of 87.
I mean, politically, that was lyrically quite a tough record as well. I mean, I think a lot of people missed that at the time, but.
They were intended to miss it, otherwise it wouldn't get played. Yeah, it was a beautifully elaborate metaphor, Withdraw Me a Labour of Love, you know, diving into the metaphoricity of industrial relations. But it was actually, it wasn't an anti-Thatcher song, but it was actually looking at the mentality of the working class Thatcher voter in England and saying, why are you voting for too much pain for too little gain? You know, what's the masochism here? What's this thing about wanting a strong leader? What is it all about?
Have you found an answer to that question?
Well, do you know, with the rise of UKIP, you know, in the last couple of years, it seems to be the question never really gets properly answered. You know, I mean, don't really. Do you really want to talk to me about politics in the Scottish context at the moment? Probably not.
These things I'm sort of itching to, but
Well,
I know that our producer will slap me for so doing.
There's a manager right
next
to you with a writ and an injunction ready to go with you. So.
What we'll do
Google
is
Google it, baby.
we'll break for a piece of music, and the song we're going to hear is
Duty to the Debtor, which is our last single from our last album.
Let's hear that. We'll do some more with Hugh Cry in a second. Duty to the Debtor from Hugh Cry. The guys are with me in the library bar here at the Gilded Balloon. Their show tonight is at the Assembly Rooms at the Music Hall at 8:30, and it's tantalisingly close to selling out. In fact, it might even be selling out as this conversation takes place.
Hopefully.
That song we played was from last year, was it?
The last album was called Hotwire.
Right.
That was from last year.
Last year.
And it was, yes, we wanted to make it. The deal is that we tossed a coin, and I wanted to make a big fat ballad record while I still had a voice, and he wanted to make a hot, sweaty New Orleans funk record, and he won the toss. And so, by virtue of logical two sides of a coin, the next record should be a big fat ballad record. So that's what we're sort of planning for. 214, 215. Yeah.
Now, Greg, before Pat arrived, because you got the train here, Pat, and you drove, Greg, so you were here faster. It's like a Top Gear challenge to see who would get here most quickly.
Planes, trains,
but you were saying a few minutes ago before we switched the microphones on that I think the tour that you have coming up is the biggest you've ever done. Is that right?
Yes, we're touring October, November, December, all round Britain, the belly of England and Scotland with Go West and the Christians.
And the Christians and the Go West.
So the three bands managers got together and knocked some heads. They've been trying to do it for 2 years, and they eventually got all the dates together, and our promoter Jack, God bless him, he's tried his best and he's got it all worked out. So I'll be away for 9 weeks.
Okay.
So I've never done that
From
before.
his baby.
And
From his new baby.
Were you friends with these guys in the 80s? Because you were all, I guess, at a sort of commercial peak, if nothing
I
else.
remember
we
did some shows with Madonna in the 80s, and the song that announced her was Go West, We Close Our Eyes.
Right.
And I remember them playing that, and I got to know Peter every now and again, just bumping into them. But I mean, you're always too busy. You don't get to hang out when you do TV shows and festivals and things together. You're always working, so you don't get much time to hang out. But we will this time, since we're going to be on the road for 9 weeks.
We've got the embroidered smoking jackets all sorted out. We've got the massages. It's going to be great. It's just going to be oxygen tent. It's all going to be just.
You changed your rider again.
It's just going to be lovely.
And we know from our conversation the next record, when it happens, will probably be a big ballad record. So whatever it turns out to be, when can we expect some new recorded material?
We're going to do this. We've been. It's the 25th anniversary of Remote this year, our second album. So we've been revisiting that record, and we're hoping we're going to put together a book to celebrate the history of Remote. I've found all the old photographs from New York of you and I wandering around not South Street Seaport. What's the one down at the Hudson River? We used to hang out.
Senior moment. Hold on.
So I found all those photographs, Twin Towers, Empire State.
Christ, yes.
Some beautiful images. So we're going to put a book together that celebrates the 25 years of Remote. Pat and I have revisited the album musically and lyrically. So we're just putting the final touches to the arrangements, and we'll record that this month. But as far as new stuff's concerned, that Remote thing will come out towards the end of the year, October, November. And then as far as new stuff's concerned, 2014 is going to be such a creative time for Glasgow with the build up to the Commonwealth Games. So we're going to bury ourselves in our new studio and write.
There's also a referendum taking place. I imagine you'll be spending much of the year trying to work out how you're going to vote in that referendum.
Not me.
I imagine that's much of the.
Oh, that was
the-
dry as martini.
much of the year taken up, I guess, in those
DJ.
deliberations.
I like that.
The best of luck tonight. It's a shame you're only in town for one night, of course, because most performers are here for the whole run, but you get to just come in and do one show and
Smash
then
and grab.
disappear again.
Yep, Ouija passports at the door.
Enjoy the show, Assembly Rooms Music Hall tonight at 8:30. And as I said, as this conversation is taking place, the few remaining tickets are being sold, so you want to get in touch with the venue as soon as possible. Pat and Greg, thanks very much for joining
Thank you,
us.
mate.
Thank you so much.
The greatest hits.